morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to this edition of Chartered Accountants Worldwide Difference Makers Discuss. I'm delighted today to be chatting to Tinashe, who is the president of Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand and a director in Deloitte. Now, this has been a long time in the making, this discussion. I met Tinashe when I was down in Perth, when I was president of Chartered Accountants Ireland in April. And to say I was bowled over by his joie de vivre, by his views for the profession, and just by the energy he brings to everything he does is an understatement. So I said we needed to talk to him on this podcast because he is very definitely a difference maker. So, Tinashe, I've given you two titles there, President of Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand and Director in Deloitte, but you're also a dad. You're also heavily involved in the charity circuit and do so much more between. So, Tinashe, you're very welcome. I'm going to turn to you to kind of give us a whistle-stop tour as to your journey. I know you were born in Zimbabwe, but now are based in Perth. So can you give us a whistle-stop tour from A to B and some of the key points along the way, and then we'll delve into them and examine.
Sure, and thank you for having me. It's great to actually be in the same time zone. I think it would have been much more challenging if I was in Perth, I reckon. And it was great to meet you as well in Perth. So I've had an amazing career. So like you said, I was born in Zimbabwe. Born in Zimbabwe in the 80s, and so I don't really want to give away my age, but born in the 80s and lived in Zimbabwe in what I would reflect on as sort of a golden time for Zimbabwe. Went to school in Zimbabwe, had a great school that I went to, St. George's College. But it was sort of towards the end of the 90s where, if things in Zimbabwe had stayed the same as they were, I would have stayed in Zimbabwe and worked for one of the big six accounting firms. Arthur Andersen was still there at the time. And in fact, I think Price Waterhouse hadn't merged with Coopers. So that's what I would have gone on to do. But obviously, the economic situation in Zimbabwe changed pretty dramatically and also pretty quickly. So in the end, I ended up getting a place at a university, one in England and one in South Africa and one in Perth. As a very young man, I think I wanted to be as far away from my parents as possible. So I ended up picking a university in Perth, studying accounting and finance in Perth. So always been interested in businesses and how businesses work. In fact, I've actually just always wanted to be a chartered accountant. That's I know not a lot of people can say that. So I didn't sort of really fall into this. I just loved businesses. My dad worked in business and my mum ran a college as well in Zimbabwe. So that's how I got to Australia.
So two key decisions there you took, Tinashe: A, to go to Perth, and B, to study accounting or finance. So tell us a bit about Perth. I mean, I've been there, obviously, and I know what it's like, but huge difference, I would have thought, from Perth and Zimbabwe.
Yes and no. So, I'm blessed in so many ways. I, knew what a scrum was in rugby. I knew where mid wicket was on a cricket field. So, in so many ways, in fact, a side story, I was actually a scorer. I used to score cricket in high school. uh, but on a side note, those things were very helpful in terms of integrating into Australia. You go to the pub or whatever, and you just mixed and mingle with people. And obviously didn't know much about Aussie rules, even though I'm now a diehard Eagles fan. But that was very helpful. So in so many ways, you're young. It's really easy to connect with people, and you're at university. It's fun. So got to meet a lot of people that way.
Brilliant. So yeah, so as you say, different cultures mix, different cultures collide, but if you can get a commonality there, that's a good kind of introduction. So sport became your segue into the community in the first instance.
Yes, yes. Sport and just, we stayed on campus as well, which was really helpful. So you got to meet a lot of other students from, all sorts of different backgrounds, whether it's from Malaysia or, I hadn't really met a lot of people from probably Southeast Asia at the time. So it was really good to connect with people. And in fact, many of those people I'm still connected with today, that I met with university, even though they've gone over back to whether it's Singapore or Hong Kong or whatever it is. But university was a great way to actually connect with people.
Fantastic. And do you still have family in Zimbabwe, Tinashe? I mean, do you go home much?
Yeah, my parents are in Zimbabwe at the moment. I visited them just a few months ago as well, and they're probably at the stage where moving is probably harder than it would be now at their age. But they love it there, and that's what they've grown up with. I get to see them probably almost every year. Brother based in New York, currently in Zimbabwe, and my sister is not far from here as well. So she's in Brighton, in the UK. So we're sort of a little bit all over the place.
Okay, so now you've completely confused the audience because I need to now just tell the audience you're actually in London at the moment doing this podcast from London. So when you say near to here, it's not Brighton is not
Not
near to Perth, but near
that's
to London.
right. I am in London, and there is a blue sky, like I said, just outside of St. Paul. So it's beautiful, beautiful day here in London.
Brilliant. And you're in London, I know, for the president's dinner. Your president's dinner there. So enjoy that first and foremost. But come here, talk to me. So you're a director in Deloitte, and a lot of people, and I'm going to kind of generalize here, but a lot of people kind of almost wait till they're at the very kind of senior levels of their career before they go and throw their hat in the ring for officer or president of a chartered body. You've absolutely booked that trend and have done it at a very I don't want to say young age because you're so much wiser and mature than your age, but you have done it early on in your career. What drove you to get involved with the institute?
If I'm being honest, it's a lot of luck, right? But also, I think I reflect on it, and there were a lot of people that probably believed in me more than I even believed in myself along my career journey. So I joined the Young Chartered Accountants back in probably 2008 or 2009. And that was fantastic. Again, you get to meet and connect with so many different young chartered accountants that end up, going to do so many amazing things, right? So I did that, Young Chartered Accountants. I got an awesome opportunity when I was at Grant Thornton, and I had a secondment in Sweden. So I spent some time in sort of Stockholm and Gothenburg, which, opens your eyes up even more. You're in a different country, different language. I reflect on the Swedes and how, they were so innovative, whether it was Spotify back then, just the way they ran their businesses, they could switch languages in meetings, just th- those sorts of things really, they have a real impact on your career and your trajectory. And so I got back to Australia, and I was lucky enough in my sort of state council. I got to go onto the local West Australian Council, and actually ended up being the chair of the West Australian Council. So very young as well, probably the youngest ever at the time. And that wasn't easy either. I think I lost a couple of elections as well. So it's not like I just got into a role and like, even though I was lucky, but I did lose a couple of elections. Um, in fact, I reflect on something where to get onto what we call the big council in Australia, one of the people I was competing with had to go overseas on a trip the day of the vote or the week of the vote. And in so many ways, I was lucky because I was able to present in person, and that made a difference in terms of my own case, to get onto the big council. And there's a past president, who I really respect, Peter Rupp, who's always encouraged me through my journey. And, he's always said, and, it's a famous saying, but the harder you work, the luckier you become. And that is what's happened in my career. I've worked pretty hard. I've been lucky, and I've always taken opportunities. So, even though some people might decide to take on these roles at a much later stage in their career, I always felt it was quite important to show people that, if I can do it, they can. And so, me taking on this role as president, it is a big commitment, right? It takes time away from family, it takes time away from friends, and from, your day job. But I thought it was quite important for people to be able to see that, we can do that sort of thing, especially because of where our profession is, right? And I look at, it's probably the same here, but attracting people to our profession is really important, and we want to attract people that can see themselves in the future leaders of the profession, right? So I get I get a lot of when meet with young people. I've had opportunities to go to schools, and for a lot of them, when I tell them that I'm the president of Chartered Accountants, it's a little bit of a shock, I must say, but it's also heartening so that they can see that that they can do it too. And that's always been really important in terms of taking on the role or the roles at the time.
100% agree with you. And I mean, look, I just want to say I think you're an amazing ambassador for the profession, and people can absolutely see themselves in you. But look, there's so much there that you've said that I want to try and unpack. So I jotted down two things in particular. One was the fact that you obviously seize the day and grab opportunities when they come towards you. So, I mean, you mentioned going to Sweden with Grant Thornton, which I suspect was probably pushing yourself out of your comfort zone at the time and moving on to that. And then it was standing for elections. And the second thing I jotted down was losing elections, and that's something that's really hard to come back from. First off, it's hard to put yourself forward for elections, but secondly, it's hard to come back from losing an election. So, can you talk to me a little bit about what those sliding door moments in your life where you've grasped an opportunity? You've mentioned Sweden, but maybe some other things, and then what drove you when you lost elections to keep going? Because that takes a lot of strength to keep going.
Yeah, I'll probably start off with the election. And I remember I'd presented, and obviously I didn't win, but someone took me aside straight after the election and said to me, "It's just not your time right now, but keep going with this." And it was literally 5 minutes after the election. In fact, I remember it like it was yesterday because it was the day that Donald Trump actually won his first election in 2016. So it was that day, and obviously a lot was going on. But just the fact that someone took me aside and said, "No, it's okay. You did really well. It's just not your time now." That was then. It just made me really reflect and think that, oh, okay, it's just not my time, but you got to keep going and keep trying. And you put yourself forward for those things, because I always find that, when you're a little bit out of your comfort zone, that's actually when you, to be honest, do a lot of growth and growing. That is when you learn a lot. When you're very comfortable, I find that I like challenges. And in everything I've sort of done throughout my career, I've always looked for that extra challenge. So going up for that election and losing helped. It actually helped me next time around, right? And because I was able to present better, I was able to actually articulate my value proposition much better as well the second time around.
Doesn't it absolutely show as well the importance of an encouraging word at the right time? That person actually took you aside and had just had the 3 or 4 minutes to say that to you, which probably had a big impact on you. So I think that's something to take from that. So yeah, and so you stood again, and then you became the youngest ever chair of the Western Council. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Youngest chair of the Western Australian Council, and it was an amazing opportunity, right? Because it's yes, it is the local state, but you got to meet, premiers and business leaders, and got to mix with so many people in our profession. And again, it is, you know, they come into a meeting, and it's the premier of the state or whatever, and you're a young person is chairing the meeting is always a little bit, um, but it's good because then you can provide insights from a different perspective. And quite often, I'm sure it's the same here, but things like, and this is reflecting on it now, but things like cost of living and housing, those are really important things for young people today. And sometimes as you get older, you sort of, you're not as impacted by some of those changes that people are living to, from a day to day perspective. So I've always loved the fact that I've been able to straddle what I'd call relatively early career people and some of our more experienced members as well, and being able to bring some of those perspectives to some of our discussions. I think it's really important.
Yeah, it is. It's really important to kind of represent your constituent members. But come here, talk to me a bit about that. So at the start of a meeting, and suddenly there's that moment where maybe someone's looking at you going, "Gosh, he's very young." Really. And I think we've all had that. I've certainly had it as a female earlier on in my career, and people come in and I'd be maybe the only female in the room, and they'd have that. There is that instant where you need to use that to your advantage to say, okay, I'm actually going to do this now. Did you ever have those moments of doubts though, when you thought, ooh, am I going to manage this?
A little bit, but in some ways, maybe I actually thrive on that. Um, a little bit, that those moments of self doubt. But I quite often just reflect on once you start talking to people about whatever their issues are, and they start understanding that actually this person knows what they're doing, they get over it pretty quickly, and that's very helpful. So that's one thing I found, and we as in your role as well as you would have experienced, we're membership bodies, so we sometimes deal with some challenging issues with members, um, but that we shouldn't be afraid to have those difficult conversations, and I always try to have those conversations as early as possible because I just find once you talk to people, um, it changes the dynamics. We live in an era where, unfortunately, whether it's social media or people writing you emails like you would have received over your time, if you have a conversation with someone face to face, it's actually quite often very different and very helpful.
So, Tanasha, you mentioned there about two things, really, I suppose, some of the issues that we maybe take on when we're president of the chartered bodies, but also the attractiveness of the profession. And I know that this year took on the communication of a route into the profession in Cannes, being the non-degree route, which personally I think is amazing and will lead to diversity in the profession and increase the attractiveness. But talk to me a little bit about that. A, your decision and the rationale around that, and B, maybe some of the challenges that you got from members about it.
Yeah, so the decision is really based around that attractiveness piece, right? We're trying to attract more people to our profession, and when we sit around the board table, it's about how can we do that. And there's multiple things that we're doing, whether it's campaigns at the cinemas, for example, but also this pathway has actually always existed in Australia and New Zealand. It's just that we probably hadn't highlighted it initially, and we recognize that our pathway actually took too long, right? So this new pathway that we announced, which inevitably, because Australia and New Zealand, most people come through that um, business commerce degree pathway. I think rightly so. A lot of members were a little bit surprised initially, but when you start talking to our members about the challenges that we're facing, they're much more understanding. So you know 10 years ago, 83% of students finished high school in Australia. That's down to 73% today. So the people going into university, there are less people going into universities. And even the universities themselves are changing the pathways for people to come into the universities, right? So they're giving places to students while they're still in school, for example. They're not waiting until the results have been released. So there's this pipeline issue of people coming into the profession, and, I've been fortunate to go to a few schools to talk to them about accounting recently. I went to one school in a lower socioeconomic area in Western Australia, and the teacher said, out of all the students doing the year 12, less than a third of those students would even consider or choose to go to university. Right. So, from a professional perspective, if we can give some of these students the opportunity to earn and learn, for example, that gives them more of an opportunity, like I've said before, to give them the same opportunities that I've had as a chartered accountant and the same opportunities that you've had, to work with some great people, great clients, to travel, and just to enjoy the benefits of being a chartered accountant in this world. Um, but one of the other things that it does, or it's done, is just from an Australia and New Zealand perspective, is our First Nations people. So whether you come from a Pacifica background in New Zealand or an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander background in Australia, we just don't have enough of those members in our profession, right? So this opens up a pathway where someone can finish school and start to learn and earn and get some work experience. I always laugh at this, Sinead, because this is, a statistic that I still find really humbling. And there are probably more chartered accountants in Australia that were born in Zimbabwe than there are that come from an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander background, right? So that's a big statistic. So we need to do more in terms of attracting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people into our profession. And there's lots that we're doing, but this isn't going to be it's i- in fact, you sort of one of the things I'm going to continue advocating for and working on after this role is how we can get more Indigenous people into our profession and how it can help with that.
That is amazing, and look, hats off to you. And I know that you got some, some interesting media articles when this kind of hit the media, and I thought the way that Cannes dealt with it was phenomenal, and explained the rationale as to why you've done it, and why you're promoting it. It's really fascinating, though. I mean, the issues that Cannes are experiencing are the same issues that we're experiencing here in Ireland, that I know some of our sister bodies in Singapore or South Africa or around the world are experiencing. And to me, those challenges bring with it a huge opportunity for us to have a truly global voice. And I know Chartered Accountants Worldwide are our vehicle for that. But Tinashe, how important to you is I suppose, the voice and the perception and the truth that chartered accountancy is absolutely a global profession?
Oh, it's so important, right? I've had the opportunity to talk to our colleagues, whether it's in South Africa, like you said, Singapore, whether it's in Hong Kong, here in the UK. It's so important to have that unified voice, and I've had the opportunity over the last couple of days to speak to some of our team members that are working on these initiatives of having that stronger voice, having some consistent language about our profession. Being a chartered accountant is actually pretty awesome, right? It is pretty awesome, and we just need to continue to help sell the story. So, one of the things we need to do better at as chartered accountants is be better storytellers. Once we tell people about the stories that we encounter with our clients, with our people, with our teams, and some of the complex and exciting work we get to do, we won't have any problems attracting people to our profession if we can help tell our stories much better. And that's, one of the things that I'm working on as well with our teams is just, with these campaigns, right, that we're all working on together to help lift our profession.
Yeah, yeah, and you've got it in one. I mean, we have so much to offer. We are actually a marketeer's dream, if the truth be known. I mean, the perception that we're boring or we're very narrow or we're focused just on numbers, it is so far from the truth. I mean, we're embedded in everything. We're embedded in the biggest mergers and acquisitions. We're embedded in the development of AI. We're embedded in the sustainability journey. And I mean, I think, yeah, I think you're right. It's about storytelling, but storytelling the truth, not storytelling a fiction, storytelling the truth. So look, I think it's great, and I think the more global we make the story, the better. Tinashe, I'm going to touch on two more things before we kind of start closing this out. I know you have a huge passion for, I want to say, not for profit, for volunteering, for, I mean, your CV is phenomenal. I mean, you've been involved in the Society for Vincent de Paul for a long number of years, and I mean, sit on the National Audit and Risk Committee. But it's obviously a passion of yours, and I know there's other charity or not-for-profit organizations you're involved in. Can you give us, 3 or 4 minutes on the driving force that you have there?
Yeah, and I've always wanted to give back, and it's something that I probably just got from my parents. Actually, is always giving back. So I was a volunteer for St. Vincent de Paul, and just used to volunteer, and I call it the mistake of telling people I was an accountant. And and that's one of the things about our profession, right? Whether you are, there's accountants in every aspect. Whether you're on the treasurer of the football team or the netball team, they're all chartered accountants. But one of the things I wanted to really do was, with an organization like that, it's got so much history and there's so much good works that it does. Quite often, some of these organizations don't get the same benefits of getting people with the skills that we have and bringing those to the table and just lifting up, whether it's governance, whether it's just thinking differently in terms of how we help people. And so I've been really passionate. I still volunteer. I still go and do food drop-offs and things like that, which is, still also grounds me and is really important to see some of the challenges that other people are facing. So, Vinny's has been amazing for me as well. As much as I've contributed to Vinny's, I've learned so much from that experience. And life, this circle of life is so interesting. I was talking to my mother. She was in Perth a couple of months ago, and she said, you wouldn't believe this, but your grandfather actually used to volunteer for Vinny's. Something like that I had no idea about. But I guess it's just that part of giving back. I also get to work with a small charity in India, in Calcutta, and we do a few amazing things. And that charity is quite different because with very little money, you can have such a huge impact. We have three programs. One is we provide food to some people outside the Sialda station in Calcutta. We sponsor a school in a remote area, and that school is really about um, children that come from different backgrounds and how can we integrate them into the school system. So we run a class in the morning before they go on to school to help them out with that. And what that does is it helps us with the next program, which is about how we support and sponsor young women to go through after school, to go through whether they want to be a nurse or anything like that. But it just and I reflect on my time going to India, and you see one of those students, and you see them come out the other side, and you go to their house 5 years ago, and then you go to their house now. And, we were actually going to change our name to the Open Windows charity, because one of the girls, we went to their house, they didn't have a window. She's moved to another house and they've got windows. Yeah, it's really small things, but that makes such a huge difference. And being able to use your skills as an accountant, whether it's through fundraising or just again governance, it is so amazing in terms of the impact we have as a profession on other people's lives.
Yeah, Tinashe, that's amazing. I think that's the Euthana mission. Is that?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, no, it's phenomenal if people want to look it up. And Tinashe, just well done, and thank you for that. I think what you've picked out there is two things. One, the impact that we can have quite easily or quite effectively on other communities. And two, I think it's the value set of chartered accountants. That, as you say, quite often in a lot of these communities, chartered accountants are in the middle of it all. So I think that's something we should all, be very mindful of and try and keep going. So well done on that. Um, Final thing I want to talk about: you are a dad. You're a dad to two young children, and what resonated with me a lot when I met with you in April was, you're very proud of the time you spend with your children, and I think you take one day a week. Is that right? You don't.
Yes, on Tuesdays, that's my day with the boys. So I'm off to the swimming pool normally, wrangling the two of them to a playground or doing a different thing. And it's again, it is one of those things where, Sinead, you've worked in organizations that have policies and procedures, and but as leaders, you actually have to role model those so that people, just because, yeah, most organizations might have a policy that says you can do this, but as leaders, we have to live them so that our people can actually see us doing those things. So I don't work on a Tuesday. I have my out of office on a Tuesday, and I get to spend time with my two boys. Uh, for me, it's been really good because it's also given me an appreciation in terms of how other people have the challenges that other team members have to go through, right? I look at some of the working mums that we have in my team, and they're so amazing. And they probably do that every day, and I do it one day a week. So it's given me a little bit of an insight into some of those challenges, and it's probably made me reflect on how I lead my teams. So if someone in my team is away on a certain day, no matter what it is, I won't email them because I know that they're busy doing something else, and I want them to enjoy that time with their children or their family and their friends, because you don't they're not young for very long. Even though I took a direct flight from Perth to Paris that was 17 hours, that felt like a lifetime. Um, but but that was okay though. You get to spend time with them, and your children are a bit older now, but I think everyone keeps telling me that they grow up really fast. So I'm trying to enjoy the time that I have with them now as well.
Well, well done you. And I mean, for what you've said there, that quite often our role as leaders needs to be in showing an example and actually living some of the policies that we implement is so true. And I suspect what you're doing in Deloitte, and certainly for the profession, by demonstrating that, is going to help hugely. And yet, do enjoy the time with them, because my daughters are now 14 and 16, and I'm dealing with a whole other world of pain. But enjoy them whilst they're so little. Um, Tinashe, you are amazing. You are a role model for people in the profession, for people in general. I know you've got a few weeks left of your year, and I know you've still a few more things to achieve. And I want to congratulate you on your year, and I want to, you know, wish you the best for the next few weeks. I dread to kind of end the conversation with an open question, but I'm dying to know what's next, because I'm guessing you're going to keep pushing into the next growth zone, the next out of your comfort zone. Do you have any thought process as to what's next, or are you?
So, so I've got a few weeks to go. I've got a few member events that I'm really looking forward to attending, because that's also one of the things that gives me energy. Some of our new member events and some of our milestone celebrations. But I am really looking forward to taking some time off and not getting on a plane over Christmas and and January, and spending some time with the family and friends. Because you do make some sacrifices, and some of those sacrifices have meant that I haven't got to spend as much time with some of the people I really care about. And going to the gym, I haven't gone to the gym as much as I would have loved to go to. So just looking to take a little bit of a break and take stock, and just really looking to continuing to make this and help this profession be better, and just help lead. And I'm like I said, I don't have really anything planned just yet. Just looking to take some time away, spend it with some family and friends, but also just looking to see how I can continue to advocate, and yeah, help our profession for the future. But I also just want to say thank you for everything you've done for our profession. I met you in April, and that was amazing. And I've continued to follow you in your journey as well. So you're a real leader for our profession and a real trailblazer. So thank you for everything you've done. And to the many people that have wished me well, I want to say, I haven't gotten to every single LinkedIn message, but I will get to one to them at some point. But I've been really honestly humbled by um, maybe the impact that taking on this role probably has. That it's much, much, much more than I imagined. And I am sad to be this coming to an end, but it's also a great opportunity for someone else to carry on, and help us lead the profession, because that's the one thing I sort of do enjoy, is that you can give it on to the next person, and then they can carry on as well in their own different way. So yeah, it's been amazing. It's been awesome.
It has been awesome, and well done to you, and thank you so much for everything. And enjoy your time off. Enjoy, and you've got a week's holiday there with the kids, so enjoy that. And thank you for your time today and for everything you've done over the year. So well done. Thank you, Tinashe. Thank you to the audience for staying with us to the end of this podcast, and I wish you all well, and hopefully see you next time. Thank you.